This podcast is part of the Batman Universe Podcast Network, hosted by the BatmanUniverse.net. Check out everything related to Batman and the entire Bat family at the BatmanUniverse.net, including news and original content related to comics, movies, television, merchandise, video games, and more. Also, check out some of the other unique podcasts that TBU has to offer. Consider supporting this podcast by becoming a patron on Patreon. Even $1 can go a long way in supporting this content that you enjoy. Look for a link over at the BatmanUniverse.net to offer your support now. And now, on with the show.
Hi, my name is Peter Tomasi.
Hi, this is James Tynan IV.
Hi, I'm Dan Jurgens.
Hey, I'm Dustin Wynn.
This is Jim Lee.
Hey, this is Scott Snyder.
This is Mark Hamill speaking.
This is Kevin Conroy.
This is Tim Sale.
Hello, everyone. I'm Batman, and you're listening to my podcast.
Hello, and welcome to the Batman Universe Comic Podcast, Season 12, Episode 25. I'm your host, Ian, and today I have with me...
Wait, there's no Steph. It's just me, Theo.
We are unfortunately missing Steph. She is on a well-earned vacation. She will be back soon, but we wish her all the best, and we will carry on without her. We just have a little bit of news, and it's kind of exciting that we have news after solicitations a couple of weeks ago. So first off, we have the announcement of a 14-issue digital-first Super Sons miniseries by Pete Tomasi and artists Max Raynor, and I think Jorge Corona is also mentioned. So several artists will be working just like most of the other digital first series. There will be a break in the middle of publication, probably to let artists catch up because it will be weekly. It starts middle of December. And it'll be Mondays, I believe. Second week of December, Monday, and then every week, probably until issue 7. Then I'll take a break. And then move on. So, Theo, I turn this over to you.
Super Sons! Super Sons! I have a check I am waiting to send over to DC. If they can just send me all 14 issues now, I promise not to leak them. And I will gladly enjoy them on my own. I am very happy to see my boys team back up again. The boys are back in town. And of course, the only person who can write that duo is heading up the story. So it's good to see Tomasi at the helm with writing the adventures of John Kent at the age that we all want him to be, and Damian. Knowing that this is one of the other, I don't want to say prequels because I'm assuming this is taking place sometime after the first series, but before the last series. But either way, I'm excited. Super Sons!
So we were talking just before we started recording about what this sort of means for DC's Digital First. I think that this and DC's Hope at World's End are really good signs. I like some of the anthology material they've been releasing, especially the stuff that Robert Venditti wrote for Superman Man of Tomorrow. I thought that was really nice. But as a whole, I think the anthology approach isn't great. I think they really should focus more on serialized products like this with a beginning, middle, and end that really, encourage people to subscribe on digital. And I think this will also be very nice content to have on DC Universe Infinite, because we know that the digital first stuff is probably going to show up earlier than the regular 6-month delay that we're going to get at the beginning of next year on DC Universe Infinite. I think that it's really curious. I'm very curious about how these things get decided. I mean, clearly Super Sons has a dedicated fan base. They've released an expanded omnibus. Like, that is the sign of a fan base that is very interested in purchasing this content. Most omnibuses don't get a second edition with more stuff added to it. So even though this, I think everyone knows I am a Tomasi heretic and am not the biggest fan of his writing, I think this is good because it provides a missing element in the DC universe, and I hope it proves to be the kind of thing that will allow other things. Like, I would love to see digital first miniseries going back and telling stories of, say, Elongated Man and his wife Sue, or I think everyone will not be surprised when I say Stephanie Brown Batgirl. Maybe we could finally have that adventure where she teams up with Cassandra and Babs in the past in World War II. Like there's so many possibilities that a digital first miniseries offers, because it's not required to tie directly into the ongoing continuity, but it isn't an alternate universe. So I wish DC would do this kind of thing and really, hook people in, give them points to buy past merchandise and maybe get excited about future merchandise. Like, this is digital strategy, I think, strategy that is worth pursuing, and I hope that it does well.
I am hopeful, considering what we've seen come out with the digital first line of books, that if they're not learning, DC is listening, because what we've seen them put out or have announced they'll be putting out, as is the case with the Super Sons series, is that they're listening to what fans want to read, whether it be Deceased, whether it be another Injustice line. These series have their committed fan base, and it's promising that DC recognizes that, and I'm pretty sure they're looking at the bottom line and seeing that their sales are there. I mean, I'm a big Super Sons fan, and I was even shocked to see Super Sons get an omnibus as soon as it did.
I also want to point out that this has a sort of different market. Like, it's not going paper copy first, so it's not as much of a financial risk for fans. They can check it out at $1 a pop. That's just $14 for the whole series, and the issues are sort of half issues, so you're technically, right, in my opinion, getting basically a full issue for $2, which is $2 less than you'd pay for, a full-sized issue. So this is a way, I think, that DC can really get into the original content instead of like repackaging or anthology content game. And I just think this is the way forward. It's the way to give fans what they want. It's a way to test things out without too much financial risk, either on the company or the fan. And if it works out, people will remember it and love it, like Injustice. If it doesn't, it's not too much of a loss. I mean, it's not going away, but it doesn't have to be followed up on. So I think this is great.
And who's to know whether or not, after it's all said and done, it's successful enough to where they can put out a printed version of it, whether as a trade paperback or as they did with Injustice. They did issues after they did the digital first. I'm just excited. Again, like I said, I've been following Hope at World's End. I'll definitely be picking this up. And again, I just hope that, that I am a collector, so give me my floppies, but I'll definitely be paying attention and picking this up as well. And DC, if you're listening, if you do end up putting this out as a trade or as a 7-issue mini, I'll probably be buying that as well.
I think that covers our, I think it's Challenge of the Super Sons is what it's going to be called. So that's a cool little name.
So do you think that this was a shelf story that was just sitting there that Tomasi may have done already?
Oh, yes. That's a good question. I think actually it was not. And the reason I think that is because I think that these digital firsts are actually much closer to between production time and release time than most of the print stories, because most of the print stories have to be pitched almost half a year before they're released, whereas I'm pretty sure that these digital first ones are pitched just a couple months before they start releasing, because you don't have to print them. The other reason I think that it wasn't is because this digital first format is, the way they're formatting this is very much like the way they formatted DC's Hope at World's End, and that was, I think we know pretty much definitively designed for this medium. And so I think that they have this format that they want people to pitch for. Now, I think Tomasi probably had maybe some of these ideas, but I don't think it was like a script he had already written, if that makes sense.
I guess.
I mean, the other thing is, Tomasi's a busy guy. People generally don't write stuff they're not getting paid for. So, the other piece of news is DC Nation released a new issue after a long time. I really liked that magazine where they basically gave insight into the behind the scenes and sort of gave you a catalog of what was upcoming. For Future State. They said DC Nation presents Future State. It's free on Comixology, and I think it's probably free in stores, or at least just $1 or so. We learned a couple of cool facts about the upcoming Gotham stories. Nakano, the character police detective who's running for mayor in Detective Comics right now, has become the mayor. We know that this is set only 5 years in the future, in 2025, based on the timeline. And the magistrate, instead of being a person, is an organization that is partnered with Nakano in his quest to get rid of vigilantes. So I think that's some interesting news. Theo, you had some thoughts on this?
I do. I'm not going to say that I am too crazy about all that it revealed, considering it kind of tells you where the main books are going to be going. So, it states that Nakano's going to be mayor. Well, that tells us, how this detective arc is going to end. So I'm not that crazy about that idea, but I do think helping to set up what we're going to get down the line in the next few months is a good move. I will say, however, some of the art that's in this is absolutely stunning. Like that one of Nubia is absolutely beautiful.
I think that they've really poured a lot of time into the covers, at least. We haven't yet seen interiors. Well, no, that's not true. I've seen some interiors from Eddie Barrows for Robin Eternal. So I think
they have some unfinished art. And
they've got some sketches, costume design. So I think they really have poured some good artistic talent. So I think that at least on the artistic front, we're going to get a good product. I'm excited about some of these writers they've got. I am excited for Future State. I think that it is a fun what if. I don't think it's the canon future. I think that's silly. But I think that it's a fun what if, and it's a chance to see our favorite characters in really different circumstances. So I'm all for it. I hope that it's a good 2-month... it just gives us 2 months of fun stories, and then we'll go back to main continuity, and we'll hopefully have some really cool initiatives launched then.
So since a Future State type of move, let me get your thoughts on this, because I heard someone else, and I can't remember where, bring this up, and when I heard it, I had to go back and look at it myself, and it's actually something interesting if you actually truly look at it. And it's the idea that in Future State, outside of Bruce Wayne, there are actually 2 Batmans. Because if you look at the cover for the next Batman, he basically has a cape. But if you look at the cover for the Justice League book, he does not. And the color design, the color schemes are different. So the theory is that both Luke and Tim will be a Batman. Thoughts?
As a fan of Luke, and as someone who... I've only read the DC retroactive stories for Tim, where he's kind of a jerk. I am very excited if it means Luke gets a cool role. I don't need him to be Batman. I know Luke is going to be in the Grifters storyline. So I'm excited. I love the Fox family. I think this expansion of their role is a cool one. I am still concerned because it doesn't quite feel like they're really ramping up to it, but they are at least including them in Batman and a couple other things. So if we get 2 Batmen and they're both Foxes, very cool. If we get Batwing and Batman, that would also be cool in my book.
Yeah, just an interesting thought. Again, once you go back and you look at those covers, you're like, that is interesting.
Well, I do have one last question about Future State. We have some people on the net that I've been chatting with who think that Tim Fox could be DC's Miles Morales. You know, Miles Morales, the Spider-Man who starred in Into the Spider-Verse and just had a really cool video game drop. Do you think that DC is trying to turn Tim Fox into a Miles Morales level character, or do you think... I don't know. I have some reservations because I feel like they're not quite pushing it enough, and it's an alternate future, so that's a little difficult to make it work. But maybe.
I don't know if I want to go that far. I will go as far as to say, if this is successful, they're going to find a place for these characters.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I would look for something like Batman Beyond. You know, that thing's been running for...
No. I mean, in the main continuity. I don't mean going as far back as Batman Beyond, but I mean, as we go back to the regular books,
you'll think Tim that'll have a part.
Some type of way. I don't know if it's necessarily going to be Tim as the next Batman, but I could easily see them bringing the Amazonian Wonder Woman.
Well, we know that she's going to get an ongoing comic and TV show, so I would agree there. But I was specifically more asking about Tim himself.
Again, if these series are good, if these things are successful, and I am the pessimistic optimist in this. I can't see how they just finish with Future State and we don't hear from these characters again. They're gonna find a place for them, and you know, whether or not they create a Miles Morales Ultimate type universe, I wish they don't. I don't think they need to.
Oh, why not?
No, I just don't think they need to. I think that, you know, that they could possibly figure a way, since these characters are already within the main continuity as is, that you can find a way to fit them in, even if it means just moving further down the timeline. You know, so Future State ends, and then maybe a few months later, again, we're still seeing the Fox family in the pages of Batman. Then you basically start setting it up so that by the end of 2021, you know, you got the next Batman. You know, he may not be calling himself that, but, you know, they're just not going to let, if Future State is a good thing, I just can't see them letting these characters go by the wayside. And I don't mean adding them to the Batman Beyond universe. I mean...
Well, no, I wasn't thinking of adding them to Batman Beyond. I was thinking that, we know, Batman Beyond is ending, and they could launch, instead of a Batman Beyond series, they could launch the next Batman series. You know, it'd be a fully comics started franchise of a future. I don't know. I mean, Ultimate Spider-Man ran for so long, and I think that we could see a Future State Batman run if we've got a creator who's turning in quality work and committed to it for several years. But I think that's what it would take to make him Miles Morales level. I don't think you can just tell us that he is as good as, you know, Bruce. I mean, that's the kind of thing that got people mad at Harper, because, you know, they kept saying, oh, she's just as good as all the other Robins, and she, you know, I like Harper, but she wasn't. And so I think they need to build it up, and it needs to be a long-term investment by a creator and fans.
And, you know, I wonder whether or not, you know, because we've been hearing all this mess, and again, it's rumor, so take it as a grain of salt, considering the source, whether or not this will fit into this whole omniverse thing that they've been, certain people, I will say, have been hinting at. Again, grain of salt. We don't know what will happen, but I don't know. I just can't see Future State being a successful run, and all of these characters just go back. You know what I mean?
I do think that they're not pouring all this money and effort into promoting Future State just to let it be like Convergence, where basically 2 series spun out of Convergence and then everything else was forgotten. I do think Future State is something they have long-term plans to see influencing. I would look at something like Future's End, where Future's End actually did have long-term consequences, because the Batgirl series tried to build up to, the Future's End, where you had 3 Batgirls, and the Batman series was very invested in the whole Bruce cloning himself plot. Like, Future's End was very connected to what was going on, and I feel that Future State is also very connected to what's going on, whereas Convergence was very disconnected with what was going on. And so I think we're getting sort of the best of both Convergence and Future's End, in that we don't have an event series that you have to, follow, and it's really big and dumb, but you have an ongoing narrative that clearly they've crafted together, and each series probably enriches each other, but is not necessary. Like, that's the kind of big thing that I like to see, where it's a status quo that you tell cool stories in, rather than an event that you have to necessarily tie into.
Yeah, because correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the only thing that's still around from Convergence is Soups and Lois and John.
There's T-Lo's, and I think he's not really relevant anymore.
Who?
The bad guy turned good guy from Convergence that no one cares about at all.
Oh, okay.
No, I think you're right. I think that Convergence did exactly one thing, and that's bring back classic Superman and give him a son. And those things were huge, and they lasted, but no one really connects them with Convergence anymore because they've developed a life of their own. But I think historically, you do have to say that's where they came from. All right. So, lots of stuff to talk about, a little more than I thought we had, but let's get moving on our reviews. First, we're going to start with Batman number 103.
Bum, 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 bum.
Written by James Tynion IV, art by Carlo Pagulayan and Guillaume March. Many years ago, 15-year-old Bruce sits in the Gobi Desert, meditating on the anniversary of his parents' death, as he learned from his latest teachers. Ghostmaker arrives, challenging him, but he finds less fun in tormenting Bruce than usual. He tells Bruce that caring makes him weak. In the present, the two fight again, while Oracle can't see or hear anything Ghostmaker does. Ghostmaker brags about all the crime he stopped in 12 hours, and Batman tells Clown Hunter to run, using his real name, Bao. Meanwhile, Harley talks to her plant as a stand-in for Poison Ivy, and Clown Hunter sneaks up and tries to kill her with his bat. She beats him fairly easily with a knee to the fork, but Batman is thrown through her window, stabbed. Ghostmaker tranks Harley when she mocks his name, and Batman reveals he was already dealing with the crime Ghostmaker quote-unquote stopped in a long-term fashion instead of quick, easy fixes. Ghostmaker just tranquilizes Batman, too. So, do you think Ghostmaker seems plausible as someone who could beat Harley and Batman as shown in this issue?
I'm still not sold on Ghostmaker as a character. He seems like, I don't want to say a poor man's Hush, from the standpoint of, being a part of Bruce's life all these years. I don't like the idea that, he could easily take out Bruce and Harley basically at the same time. I'm not sure. I'm still having designer vibes about him, even though unlike designer, he's an actual character that Bruce is facing right now compared to a zombified corpse. But I'm still trying to. I'm just not there yet. There's something missing. I can't put my finger on it just yet.
I think Ghostmaker is being developed. I mean, I liked the characterization note. He's not as one note as he was last issue. He has sort of moments of complexity. I do think that him beating Batman here, I don't mind myself, but I just know all the people who complained about Batman being beaten in Tynan's detective run are going to complain about the same thing here. So I think a villain has to have some wins early on, otherwise they're not really a threat. But I know that people beating Batman, especially new characters, gets people really cranky. Next question.
Always.
Yeah. Next question. What do you think of Harley's monologue to Poison Ivy? Do you think this is part of the plan for Queen Ivy, the storyline from Joker Warzone?
I don't know, because, I mean, because like Swamp Thing, Ivy is connected to the green. So you would suspect that if Harley is talking to this thing, that Ivy could somehow hear it and know what's going on. But, as we know from the story in Warzone, she's as upset at Harley as she is with the rest of Gotham. So I'm still trying to get those two events to connect.
I think Tynan is definitely trying to get us to keep Harley and Ivy's relationship in the back of our heads. I think that Queen Ivy's going to be... I mean, I don't know. We don't know any solicitations. I think we're almost certainly going to wrap up the Clown Hunter and Ghost Maker arc by the end of this year to leave things open for a brand new arc, whether it's Joker versus Bane or the Harley and Ivy or something. I mean, we've got so many threads that we could be seeing. I think that we will probably, based on this scene, see Queen Ivy earlier rather than later. And I kind of hope that, because I'd rather not get Joker back in Gotham fighting Bane quite this early.
Yeah, I still think that's going to happen closer to the end of the year.
And I hope you're right, because that would make most story sense.
Yeah, and I think JT realizes, again, if he listening to his followers, he realizes that we need a break from Joker, at least in the main continuity.
Yeah, I think you're right, and I think he knows it. And also, we've got the punchline stuff that's going to be happening. So there's plenty of things, and I'm pretty sure he's also going to... I mean, we've got the Grifter plot thread, too. Like, Batman telling Grifter, tell your boss, and there's some mysterious boss that Grifter's working for. Do you think...
I'm sure that'll be played out in that Grifter backstory, perhaps, in Future State.
That would be pretty cool. I mean, I just love all the little pieces that you can see connecting, and I hope DC's doing it on purpose. I feel like they are, because they're talking very much about how they have all these seeds. So I feel like these things have to be on purpose. But, DC has let us down before. So last question. Do you think Batman's approach to crime fighting as portrayed in this issue is sensible, or do you think Ghostmaker is correct?
I mean, if what Batman does is what heroes do, heroes that we know. I mean, if I wanted someone who had no problem killing people and taking the bad guys out permanently, I would read The Punisher, or I would say, hey, bring Lobo back and let Lobo, just take out a bunch of bad guys and call it a day. So Batman's way of doing things is what heroes do. And I truly enjoyed how Tynan set it up, almost as if, Ghostmaker is basically saying, you didn't even know all this crap was going on. And then at the end, Bruce is like, yes, I did, because this has happened. Those weapons have already been loaded with duds of ammo. That's Batman. That's the type of stuff Batman has always done. it seemed almost like something that you would see in the pages of Detective. And that's just who he is, and again, Ghostmaker is Frank Castle in the white suit, and I could go find me a Punisher book if I wanted that as a fan.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that Tynan very much wants us to see that Batman isn't trying to claim to be perfect or the only way, but he's not incompetent. He's not a failure. And I like it. And it was cool to see, Cassandra being his lieutenant, tracking the serial killer. And I kind of, oh man, I keep saying
he
this.
knew everything. He knew everything. All this stuff. Like, you didn't know this was going on, and you didn't know this was going on, and you didn't know all these weapons that had come in, and I put a stop to it. And Bruce was like, "You fool! Those weapons were basically, mid-tier guys, and I basically set it up to get the big bads, and you didn't ruin that." That was fun reading.
Yeah. But I wish
outsmarting him.
I wish we had some backups that Tynan was writing to show us him doing these little plots. I just read Streets of Gotham. I'd read most of it before, but I read the final arc, and the little backups and how they played into the main run were fantastic. And I think Tynan could get one of his friends to write some backups that, would develop these things. They're already charging a lot for Batman. I feel like they should add some backups to it.
Well, that's one of the reasons why I'm happy about Future State, because we get all of these backstories.
Yeah, agreed. It feels like a fleshed out world.
Yeah, I mean, because there's no way that these backstories won't fill in some type of weight to what's going on in the book. I mean, you could just look at the different names of them and see how they're going to fit in. So, I mean, even as much of a fan I was not, even the extra mini book that you got in DK3 helped fill in some of the holes that were in the main story.
I liked the mini comics. I mean, I didn't love the art, but I liked that they played into the main story, so it wasn't like extraneous. It enriched the series.
Yeah, it allowed you to fill in some holes, and you got to give Azzarello and Miller some credit for that. So if more of the main books were like that, to help move the story along. I mean, and just as they're doing with Future State, they could do it with these backstories and have the new age of writers and creative teams tackle those backstories. So it exposes them to us as readers, but also allows them to, have crumbs into the main universe.
All right, so let's give this a rating. How many what should we give? How many katanas do we want to give Batman 103?
I'm going to give it 3.5. I think what puts it over the top is absolutely the art. I mean, I know we didn't discuss it that much, but again, just as the previous issue, it was absolutely great. So I'm going to go with 3.5.
I think I'm also going to go for 3.5. This was definitely an above average issue for me, and I'm a huge fan. I just remembered, as you did, that we haven't talked much about the art, but Carlo Pagulayan does a really crisp looking backstory. And Guillaume March does a fantastic Harley. I mean, Guillaume March knows the character of Harley Quinn from Gotham City Sirens and so many other things. I mean, he's been doing covers for Harley Quinn for years now. So he knows Harley and he knows how to do storytelling. So it's just really enjoyable to me. And Tynan works well with both of them. So 3.5 out of 5 katanas from me. Over on the website, Scott gave it a 4 out of 5, so he liked it even better than us, which gives us a total rating of 3.5 out of 5 katanas. All right, moving on to our review call. We'd love to hear what you thought about this issue and Detective Comics 1031 and this episode. Send us a message at TBU at thebatmanuniverse.net, on our Discord server, which is linked on our website, or our Twitter at TBU_comics, or if you're a patron, on our Patreon page. Leave us a review on Stitcher or iTunes, and we'll read all of your comments and reviews on air next time. So let's move on to our second review, Detective Comics.
Bum, 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 bum.
Detective Comics 1031, written by Peter J. Tomasi, art by Bilquis Evely, colors by Matt Lopez. Nakano works late at his campaign headquarters, and Mera arrives. Nakano does not know Mera at all, but the villain invites him to an event and gives him a flash drive. But Nakano rejects him as just another mask. Mera leaves, predicting Nakano will lose. Elsewhere, Batman breaks up a fight between a pro and anti-Batman graffiti artist, telling the family something is up, and continues his search for Damian. Damian himself confronts Detective Podlaski in her home about the long-ago attempt on his father's life, revealing she is Hush's illegitimate half-sister. She refuses to help him, so he ties her up, calls the cops, and leaks the story of her corruption to the press, taking her cat with him. Batman and the Bat family continue to observe the anti-Batman mob, and Batman has to pass up a chance to track Damian when he uploads information to the Bat computer because of the Mera's flash mob. A group of citizens wearing paper masks of the Bat family confronts Mera's mob, saying the heroes are worth supporting, and the Mera attacks them, causing a massive riot. As the Bat family attempts to break up the fight, someone wearing a paper Batman mask shoots them with tranq darts. Batman fights the Mera one-on-one, and he struggles, noticing that the Mera is someone new. When the Mera jumps into the river and causes a huge explosion, Batman makes a big speech about why he became Batman, to save others who were failed by the system, and he pleads with the mob to see that he is part of the community. The crowd disperses, and Batman gets a message from Nightwing saying to go find Robin. But we see that Hush was the man in the Bat mask, and he knocks out Nightwing to add to his pile of bats.
So, how did the Bat family escape the mob from last issue?
Well, remember, they all just scattered once they got to the top of the roof. Because they came barging through that door, and before anything happened, that's when they all just scattered. Which
So you think they just were able to easily escape?
Yeah, that just kind of ticked me off that they just ran off like a bunch of...
I just feel like that's clunky writing right there, that, you know, we have them on this cliffhanger and then they just kind of ignore it in this issue.
Yeah, that was not good writing in that issue. You know, again, if y'all want to hear my rant on how bad the Bat family was depicted in Detective 1030, listen to our previous episode. I wasn't happy with that.
It was a quality rant. Go check it out.
And, you know, I'm not sure I was crazy about how they were easily taken out in this one.
Well, let's not get a little too hard ahead of ourselves, because that's part of the question. But yeah, I think that is definitely a discussion point. Well, I'm going to jump to that question. Are you excited about the Hush reveal? Do you think he took out the Bat family too easily?
Yeah. Again, I'm not sure what Tomasi's goal is, but the fact that the family is suffering because of it is not sitting well with me. I will give all credit. I thought that this issue was definitely better than issue 1030, but I'm still not feeling how the Bat family is being written in these pages right now. You know, at 1030 they're scattering like cockroaches, and you know, this issue they again can't see that this is possibly a setup, and I don't know. It's just not. It's not that part is just not sitting well with me.
I think that's a good point. I do think it is better constructed than last issue, but I also concur. I think that the Bat Family are kind of written as generic. They don't really have individual personalities, and they all do get taken out very easily.
And I mean, even when you look at when Bruce is calling out to them on a secured line. Well, hell, where's that secure line in the last issue when you all got duped to that rooftop? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Now, to the other question with regards to the Hush reveal, I guess it was kind of obvious considering Damien figured out that the detective was his half sister. You knew that, you just had this feeling that he was going to be involved in this arc in some way, not necessarily on the Mara side, but perhaps on the investigation with what Damien was doing. I don't know if Hush is, and again, I know Tommy knows Bruce well, but I'm not sure if Hush is good enough to pull this off.
It does. I do like the way that we connect it, and I like the idea that we're going to have Damien as Robin coming at this mystery from one side, and Bruce...
they're definitely going to meet up.
Yeah, I like that. That's clever. But I kind of wish... I don't know, Hush is a hard villain to set up because he's a chess master, and if you start showing him, you're like, oh yeah, he's doing all the stuff. So I think it's appropriate. He's kind of definitely at least B-list, if not A-list villain. But he's also kind of boring. He doesn't really have a gimmick. He's just supposed to be really smart, but he always has to be beaten, so he looks kind of dumb eventually. I don't know. I just read, as I said, The Streets of Gotham, which ends with the House of Hush storyline, and that was a big disappointment because it felt very much like Dini had to wrap up way too quickly, and everyone ended up looking kind of dumb.
And is this our first time seeing Tommy again since... the prelude to the wedding?
I think so. No. Hush was in City of Bane. He and Batman had that face-off. That's sort of like a Western, and Batman threw a Batarang, and Hush tried to shoot him. And yeah, so he was part of Bane's takeover of Gotham, but he hasn't really done anything on his own initiative recently since the prelude to the wedding.
How the hell did he get out of that? Wherever he and
the dimension,
that dimension, him and Dick got trapped in at one point. Because I don't remember him in seeing him in City of Bane. So how the hell did he get out of that portal?
Magic. All right. So next question: what do you think of the question of Mirror versus Ghostmaker now? Both have had one-on-one fights with Batman, and Ghostmaker beat Batman in his title, whereas Mirror got beaten here, but still caused a lot of trouble.
I'm not gonna say Ghostmaker beat Batman, even though Batman got trained, so it wasn't like he got beat down. Again, I'm not quite there on Ghostmaker. I guess I can use the term that you used earlier. He's developing. I still don't like either character, but I mean, I've always figured that, Ghostmaker was, from the standpoint of combat, the better combatant. And I hope nobody goes back and check last episode and I said something totally different. Just scratch that from your memory. Yeah, I mean, either either the Mara is just this sacrificial lamb for Hush who willingly gives his life, to the cause, or he's gonna be this mastermind with a bigger plan for using the people of Gotham in this anti-vigilante protest that's building across the city. But I'm still not a fan of either.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I was pleased that Nakano was not in league with Mirror. I was really worried they were going to make him a villain, and instead he's got integrity. He refuses to join with the Mirror's bloodthirsty schemes. So that was good. I think it is a little troublesome that both of them have such similar story elements going on, and neither of them are super strong villains, so it kind of highlights both of them. You don't have... I guess you sort of have a classic villain with Hush now, but I think Hush is one of the least interesting classic villains, so... Last question. What do you think about Batman's speeches to the villains in Batman and Detective this week? Yeah, he gives a justification for what and why he does what he does as Batman. Do you find one of them more convincing than the other?
Well, I truly believed the detective speech more, and maybe it's because, it's the one that I just read, so it's sitting in my mind more. But this isn't the first time, he has done these type of speeches, but the notion that, hey, I'm doing this so that you all don't have to go through what I went through is quite powerful.
I agree. I liked both speeches. Tynan basically wrote a version of the speech he gave to Ghostmaker in The Victim Syndicate, and I thought it was good there, and I think it's good here, but I think Tomasi does a really good job of really capturing the pain of Batman and his mission, and I thought it was good. What do you want to give this out of? Let's see, we can't do masks, so...
3 blown up mirrors.
Out of mirror shards, how many mirror shards do you want to give Detective Comics 1031?
Well, again, I thought that this was a better issue than 1030, and that's including the art. I'm still not a huge fan of the art. I am going to give it I'm going to give it 3 mirror shards out of 5.
I think I will also give it 3 out of 5. There's some really good elements. I actually really like Bilquis Evely's art. I like it better here than in there because there wasn't a weird dream sequence kind of eating up page time.
I will admit, this issue, it was better.
Yeah,
I will give credit there. It was better this issue, but it's still not a fan.
I liked that speech. I really liked Damian's detective work. But the Bat family getting taken out like punks, and I'm just not a fan of Hush as a villain. So him being revealed out of nowhere, and I'm just like, that guy again. So
if the Joker was able to take him out, I could see that. Joker is that type of villain. He is,
or Deathstroke, or even Bane. Although Bane would be hard to hide in a crowd, but it just feels like the Bat family wouldn't be so dumb as to charge into a crowd like that.
Yeah, I'm not family. I'm not a fan of that at all. But I'm going to give Tomasi a pass simply because Super Sons.
I do think this was an enjoyable issue, so I'm going to give it a 3 out of 5. So Theo, when you write your review, you got to make sure you keep your star rating consistent.
Okay.
All right.
I'll think about it.
So, we have a few pieces of listener feedback from last episode.
Sorry to interrupt, Master Booth. Ringing your phone now. This needs my attention.
Matches Malone on the Discord sent us some messages saying, so it looks like Punchline is going full Tyler Durden. Project Mayhem is alive and well, or maybe just tying into the Joker movie, themes only. I think that there's definitely qualities of Fight Club in Punchline, but kind of updated for today's internet age. Sean Wolf gave us some very kind private messages supporting us, and we really appreciate that. And we would love to hear from any of you listeners if you had any thoughts on these 2 comics or the upcoming news. If you want to tell us what you're most excited about in Future State, I would love to read those comments because I'm getting excited. So our last question of the week is, do flashback stories or prequels matter to you? Why or why not? And I ask this because, Challenge of the Super Sons is technically a flashback or prequel story. So do you find them less interesting because you know that they're in the past, or do you think they're really cool, or what?
Well, I think it depends on the story. Again, if it's something that fans will, if that's something that fans want to read, they will read it. And, for me, again, being a huge mark for the Super Sons, getting another story, even though, it's not in current continuity, being that it's in continuity, and we can somehow place it within the continuity of the overall history of the duo. I'm okay with that. Now, if it's a story that I have no interest in, then it's not going to pull any interest from me. But I mean, we kind of get it with Hope at World's End as well. It's a story that's interlaced between one series and another, and that has interest because, again, it helps fill in the story, give you an idea of what's happened between the start and the finish. So I'm okay with that, especially because these are characters that I have an interest in reading.
I think that it really depends. As you say, it's very execution dependent. So I think one of the critiques of the Star Wars prequels is not necessarily that it's because they're prequels, is because they weren't executed in a way that really made them independent or engaging on their own. I think something like Adventures of the Super Sons or some of the pitches I've just thrown out are exciting because they show stories in which you can engage with the characters and the threat, and it's not about setting something else up. So I would say a flashback story generally has more potential than a prequel story, because a prequel story generally has to set up what happens in the later stuff. I think that if you look at something like The Long Halloween or what was the sequel, Dark Victory, I think that it's very clear that these flashback stories can very much be classics. And so I don't think that it's at all a problem to set something in the past. You just have to be careful about how you do it, and you have to execute it well. And I think that that kind of answers that. So I'm curious about you, the listeners. Do you like flashbacks or prequels, and why or why not? I want to take some time to thank our patrons and supporters. We have Gerald Green, Joshua Lappin-Bertoni, Rob O, Real No Deuces, Tim Garassi, Rob Lewis, Stephanie Mounts, Ian Miller, Theodis Wright, Donovan Morgan Grant, Stanton's Grave, Donald Townsend, Ed Grouse, Brendan Roberts, Hannah Carr, Captain America, Mary Garrett, Austin Davis, Johnny McCloskey, Sam Isag, and Cody. Thank you for your support, and patrons at certain levels will get access to special bonus episodes where we talk about old and new comics and other various topics. And so those are some of the benefits you can get as a patron. They also, of course, help us keep the show hosted and continue to have our archives available. And I always encourage people to check out some of those old episodes before I came on, before Theo came on. Lots of great content, all of it Batman Universe related. That's it for this week. We will see you in a couple weeks with the next issues of Batman and Detective Comics. We'll also be reviving Greater Gotham. We'll be talking about issues of Batman Black and White and Batman Catwoman. So tune in a couple weeks, and we'll give you all the universe of Batman. Thanks for listening. This has been Ian.
Oh, shoot. I thought Steph was going to hop in again. This is Theo.
And I hope that you have a very happy Thanksgiving.
Happy gobble gobble. Super Sons.